Muse Women Tech Fellows. This time we're going to be talking about JavaScript and an upcoming project. And just to give some quick background for those tuning in on what JavaScript is, it's one of the 3 core technologies that we've been learning, and it's one of the 3 core technologies in web content production. Last time we went over HTML, that can be sort of seen like the skeleton in the body, and then we talked about CSS, which could be like the clothing or the design. JavaScript would then be seen as the behaviors, how things move, how things work, and some examples of that in your web browser would be if you ever get a pop-up in your window, that's JavaScript, or if you ever moused over an image and it's changed and you moused over it, that's also JavaScript. So without further ado, we're going to allow Kate here to kind of kick us off and talk about what she's learned with this month with JavaScript. Thanks, Kate.
Hey, thanks for the introduction, Brinker. It's really great to be back and doing more with Muse Women. I had an interesting experience learning JavaScript. I think it was a little more challenging, definitely, than the HTML and CSS, but it was also really rewarding too. One thing that was really neat about it is that for the first time we were able to make interactive applications. We were actually able to prompt the user for information and then be able to give back some sort of custom reply or experience, which in a way is really very neat because in museum work we tend to think a lot about how do we create engaging experiences for people, and it was something extra special to actually be able to really go through line by line and be a part of making code actually work in a way that you could see yourself making games and other kinds of interactive activities that real everyday people could actually use. For instance, one of the projects that we did as part of the unit was creating a game where you slay dragons. The user gets a certain number of prompts where they're asked, yes or no questions about you're in this particular circumstance, battling a dragon, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to, A, grab your sword, B, run, C, do this, duck and hide or something. And then based on what the user replies, they get some sort of feedback. They're given another question that's the next step in the game. And it was honestly really cool to be able to actually not only see how a game like that gets built, but to do it ourselves. One thing that I did find really challenging about JavaScript is learning the difference between while loops, for loops, and do while loops. It was a bit confusing. I ended up going to a lot of different free coding tutorial websites in order to read different explanations of how that works, and I feel like I was eventually able to piece it together by hearing the thoughts of some different people explain it as opposed to just going through the one tutorial.
That's great. Thank you, Kate. Monica, would you mind taking it from here?
Okay. Hi, I'm Monica, and I am very new at this coding adventure. So learning JavaScript was interesting because it shows you all the front-facing kind of interactive things that they program into websites and apps that gets you actually listening and engaging and clicking on buttons. So all the times you go to these websites and you're like, okay, I've had enough, and you go to click the X to leave, and there's like, are you sure you want to do that? That's called a confirm box. That's a line of code that someone brilliantly wrote to make you rethink what you're doing, and I'm going to use that from now on. So some things were surprising, some things were enlightening. I had a lot of challenges, just being very honest. In addition to the confirm box, I didn't realize that there were lines of code that were literally like instructions or notes to humans that are in the code. So after you put 2 slashes and then there's like a sentence, I'm like, oh, that's for me. It's like a message within a message. So that was kind of interesting to find that it's not all computer speak. It's not all numbers and symbols. There's like some plain text that you can read that the computer won't respond to if you have those 2 slashes in front. The challenging part I got stuck with was a section called conditionals. And I'm still not quite sure what I did wrong, but it was like the greater than, less than, and console log, and all this kind of stuff that if the code isn't perfect, it doesn't go through. And so I tried a few things, but my fabulous muse tech women fellows are going to help me through it so we can build this awesome secret surprise that we have for you. So that's my experience with coding, and I'm turning it over to Nicole.
Thank you, Monica. So yeah, I also came across a ton of challenges with this guy because I had a pretty steady foundation of HTML and CSS. So, I kind of went through those lessons a little too confident, thought that I knew what I was doing, and then when I got into JavaScript, it was like, oh, this is a whole nother language I don't have any understanding of, and oh my God, I didn't know what you could do with it and how it affects in so many areas. Like I think at one point in the lesson it said like, in Gmail when it shows you like the 50 characters preview of like the email, like that's JavaScript. I'm like, what? Like it was hard for me to wrap my head around like everywhere that it affects. But it was challenging for me because anytime they got into a lot of like math and I was having to think of the whole if this, then that, which is the conditionals, or else, I was like, okay, my brain can't, like, it needs one thing at a time, and that was definitely really hard. But I also enjoyed how they made the kind of gamified things, like as the dragon slaying, but also like the choose your own adventure. Like I thought that was really neat and funny. And again, Code Academy just made it enjoyable by gamifying JavaScript. So even when I was kind of hitting a wall going, I can't figure it out, and it's the syntax, and there's grammar to this that I never thought I would really have to pay attention to, they still made it fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed all of the lessons.
Great, thank you so much. And Kate, to kind of get back at Monica's question or where she got a little bit stuck, would you mind sort of sharing your screen and going over a little bit more of the conditional with us? Kate, you have to turn off your microphone, or turn on your microphone.
Okay, microphone is on. And Monica actually emailed me her code so that I can share it with you while I'm also looking at the Code Academy tutorial, and hopefully we can work through it together. Here we go. So this is the tutorial Monica was mentioning, right, Monica? It's more practice with conditionals.
Yes.
So it's it looks like step by step what they're asking us to do is write an if-else statement, and if the condition is true, it prints the condition is true. If the condition is false, print the condition is false. And we want to make sure that whatever condition we give it actually makes it evaluate to false, because it's going to check our code and it's going to check to see if it's actually giving the output of the condition is false. So I'm just going to, I guess I don't have to delete this. I could go down here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just make a variable. Let's say we're making an app to check, to confirm that the user is age 13 or over. What I'll do is I'll create a variable that's age, and in this case I'll just automatically input, let's say we know our user is 7. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an if statement to check if, basically what I want to say is if they are 13 or over, say the condition is true, and that way the computer knows, okay, well, they can proceed to use our game. Otherwise, if they are under 13, print false, tell them that they aren't allowed to play or that they need parental permission. So what I'm going to do is I'll say if, and then I'll say age is greater than or equal to 13. I need to use curly braces. Console.log, and console.log sounds fancy, but it's really just saying, say this to the user, or print. So if age is greater than or equal to 13, tell the user the condition is true. And I have to add a semicolon at the end. Now what I want to do is, but what if the user is user's age is less than 13? So I say else, in any other case, print And I'm just going to copy and paste this for ease, and then change the true to false. Condition is false. And let's test if that runs. It does.
Okay.
Is it running for you?
I was watching you. I wasn't typing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see. So tell me variable. Like, I don't know if I got to that in my lessons yet. Variable just means like here's a value.
Yeah, variable is like, think of it as a box that can store any kind of value. So I'm making an invisible box that is going to have some kind of age put into it. And maybe I hard code that age in. Maybe I, like in this example, I say the age is 7. I know the user's age is 7. I'm just going to say age equals 7, put a 7 in that box and store it. So you remember it's there. The other thing that might eventually happen, which you'll see when you get to the next steps in the lesson, is it could also give you more of an open box where you prompt the user. So I can actually tell this prompt, what is your age? And what's going to happen when this code executes is the user is going to get a box that pops up that asks them, what is your age? They submit a number, and then that number is getting automatically stored into that box, which is age. Now when the code moves down to the next line, what it's doing is it's saying, okay, look in the box that's called age. What number is there? Is it greater than or equal to 13? And if so, do this. Otherwise, do this.
So when you put age equals prompt, that's like like one of those boxes they'd have to enter in their own value,
Yep.
and then
Exactly.
it would, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So anytime that you see this prompt thing, that's
Yeah.
what that means is that the user is going to get a box that pops up that asks them or says to them whatever is in these quotation marks.
Okay. Okay, well, I did mine like yours and it worked. So thank you.
I'm going to turn off my screen share. Brinker, we may need your audio.
Going on and on. Okay, can you hear me now? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. So thank you all for sharing that. Thank you, Kate and Monica, for going through that lesson. So to just kind of quickly get everybody up to date on next steps for Muse Women Tech Fellows, this project was funded by GitHub, and the idea is that each of the fellows would go through Code Academy lesson plans for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now that we've completed or almost ready to complete the JavaScript, which we're going to finish that up in the month of August, starting September 1st, we're going to start building a project that hopefully will launch, and anyone who wants to use it at MCN or Museum Computer Network Conference this year, happening right after Halloween in New Orleans this year. So the idea that we're still kind of thinking through it, and anyone who wants to leave comments or give suggestions via Twitter with the Muse Women hashtag, please let us know. But the basic idea is to challenge MCN people to go to at least 1 or 2 museums in the area. So the idea is that we're going to have a map with about 10 museums in the New Orleans area that you can go to, and if you click on one of the map icons of a museum, then information on the location and time pop up, and then it will directly link to your Twitter feed, so you can actually leave a 140 character review. And the idea is that you can see other people from MCN going to the museum or similar museums, and you get this kind of congratulations, you've been to 1 museum or 2 museums, or the goal is hopefully 3 museums over the course of the week. And that you can tweet out this kind of congratulations map. So that's the base idea. We're still, again, kind of working through some ideas, but we welcome any feedback that the Muse Tech community might have, or what might be most useful to MCN visitors. And yeah, so I think to kind of finish this up, we'll kind of go through one final time, starting with Kate, and just talk about, what learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, what you hope to do, and any other kind of comments or ideas that you have sort of finishing up these lessons through Code Academy.
Well, I'm super excited about our project. I'm going to be going to MCN, and I'm really excited to be, involved with creating experience that other conference attendees can enjoy, but also, getting to work with these other incredibly brilliant people to make a tool and be able to actually apply what we learned here. That's really exciting. I also am excited to share the news that I'll be launching a blog soon, and the HTML and CSS that we learned specifically have been an enormous help with getting that started. So stay tuned for that.
Cool. I'll share a few closing thoughts. I'm just hoping that this process of learning to code and learning JavaScript, HTML, CSS will really build my creative confidence, my math confidence. I have a lot of kind of emotional hang-ups around math because I failed math a few times as a high schooler, and I want to get over that hump of feeling like, oh no, there's equations, I can't handle this. So I'm hoping it'll build that confidence. I definitely want to put confirm boxes on all my websites and just generally learn what I can, that maybe one day I can create an app that has the same kind of virality and intrigue as Pokemon Go, where people are going and collecting things and getting points and all of that. Got to catch them all. I would love to have something like that for any of my institutions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was working in a museum right now, but I actually brought up to my boss that I was doing this, and he was kind of surprised because, like, he started off being like, oh, museums and technology, you're learning coding. Like, he, from an outsider, did not put the two together, so it was really fun to be like, this is something that's happening, and museums are being interested in tech and coding, and so I'm kind of happy and very grateful to be at the forefront of this because I do want to eventually bring this to a museum in the Bay Area. I'm trying to see where it would fit, and I've made very basic apps in the past that now it's like, oh, I could make something that's way more interactive and not just a video and you press play. Like, I would love to actually take this further. So I'm hoping that going forward, an opportunity comes up. But yeah, I just can't wait to read the blog, Kate, and see, what comes from there. And I wish I was going to the conference, but I'm really excited to work on the project and see what we create. So yeah.
Well, thank you all again so much, and thank you to those who might be watching or watching in the future, because this will be archived on YouTube. So again, big thanks to GitHub that they were able to kind of help us financially pick up this project. And once we complete this, then each of the fellows will be getting $1,000 to go to the conference of their choice. So Nicole, maybe it could be MCN. All right, yeah. So we'll talk about that after. But thank you all for watching, and thank you to the Tech Fellows who have been persevering and doing all this great work on top of their day jobs, on top of everything else going on in their lives. It's, you just have to make the commitment if you do want to learn how to code, and this is something that's important to you in your career. Like, it's not super easy, but it's not super difficult too. It just takes some discipline and some time, and I hope what we've been able to do is show you that you can take a few months, you can have a life, you can have a full-time job, and you can also learn how to do this, and you do have a support system. So anyone else that might want to learn how to code or having any ideas on what the next iteration of Tech Fellows could be, please tweet me at BrinkerF, and thank you again to everyone who's been on today. Okay, bye. Bye, Tech Fellows.
Bye.
Bye.